Jasmine Crockett stood just off stage, her navy blue pantsuit sharp under the lights, the thrum of her heartbeat in her ears. Beyond the curtain, the unmistakable voice of Kash Patel rang out, amplified through the CNN town hall speakers. Crockett is just another progressive with zero understanding of how national security works, he declared confidently, his voice booming with swagger. The crowd responded instantly, gasps, some applause, and a scattering of boos. Crockett watched from the wings, eyes narrowing as Patel, clad in a crisp gray suit, gestured broadly, soaking in the moment. "She's all talk. No substance," he added with a smirk, typical of someone who's never handled classified documents. More cheers erupted from Patel's supporters. But what Patel didn't know was that Jasmine Crockett wasn't walking into this fight unarmed. In her hands, she clutched a folder. In that folder was something that would flip the narrative. This wasn't just a debate. It was a reckoning. Chris Wallace's voice broke through the buzz of the audience. And now, joining us is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She exhaled deeply and stepped into the spotlight. The studio lights blazed, illuminating the contrasting figures now seated across from each other. Patel radiated the confidence of a Washington insider, former chief of staff at the Department of Defense under Trump, a man who lived in green rooms and briefing rooms. Crockett, a freshman congresswoman from Texas, exuded a different kind of power, that of someone who had battled in courtrooms, fought for civil rights, and who understood that sharp words mean little without sharper evidence. "Congresswoman Crockett," Wallace began, "you've heard Mr. Patel's comments. How do you respond?" She adjusted her microphone calmly, eyes locked on Patel. "Thank you, Mr. Patel, for your service," she began, her voice even. "It's always valuable to hear from former officials, especially those with unique experiences." The pause before unique earned her a few chuckles from the audience. "I find it interesting that Mr. Patel questions my qualifications," she continued, "when my role on the Judiciary Committee requires direct oversight of national security matters. That's literally part of my job." Patel leaned in, cutting her off. "Committee assignments don't equal expertise, Congresswoman. I've actually handled top-secret information. I've been in the room where global decisions were made. With all due respect, reading briefings isn't the same as creating them." The crowd responded, some applauding, others shifting uncomfortably. "When was the last time you were briefed on a level 1 security threat?" He fired off. "Have you ever had to make decisions that could cost or save American lives?" Chris Wallace tried to step in, but Patel plowed ahead. "The American people deserve representatives who understand the gravity of these matters, not politicians using CNN as a campaign stage." He looked around, relishing the scattered claps of support. Crockett remained calm, even as Patel's tone escalated. "I find it fascinating," she said, "that Mr. Patel is so focused on handling classified information, given his own track record." A ripple passed through the crowd. Before Patel could respond, she tapped the folder beside her. "Since Mr. Patel insists on making this about credentials, let's talk about his." With a signal to the production team, the studio screen lit up. On it, an Inspector General's report dated June 2022. "Mr. Patel, are you familiar with this document?" she asked, her tone steady. Patel hesitated for the first time. "I'm familiar with many reports, Congresswoman. You'll have to be more specific." "Page 47, paragraph 3, Crockett replied. "It specifically names you, Mr. Patel, in connection with what the IG called troubling breaches of established security protocols." The studio fell into stunned silence. Even Wallace blinked in surprise. "That report is taken out of context," Patel snapped. "Parts of it have been disputed." Crockett didn't flinch. She pulled out a second document. "Here's the follow-up report, dated September 2023, which reaffirms the findings. And those disputed portions? None involve your section." The shift in the room was palpable. Patel's earlier smirk was gone, replaced with a tightened jaw. "This is a political hit job," he muttered. Typical leftist deflection. "These are official government documents, Mr. Patel," Crockett replied. "If they've been debunked, I'd love to see the evidence." She turned toward the audience. What we have here is a clear case of projection. Mr. Patel questions my credentials while his own record contains the very lapses he accuses others of. The audience broke into thunderous applause. But Jasmine Crockett was just getting started. The audience buzzed, some exchanging whispers, others visibly leaning in as she continued. She raised her hands slightly to signal the crowd to quiet down, then adjusted her posture to face Patel directly. The weight of her words was building, and the camera zoomed in, capturing every inch of the moment. "Let's be clear," Crockett said, her voice unwavering. "Mr. Patel wants to talk about credentials. But I'm not here to play a game of who has the most impressive resume. I'm here to talk about the truth. The truth about national security, and the truth about what happens when people in power fail to do their jobs." She let the silence hang in the air, allowing the gravity of her words to settle in the studio before continuing. "You see, this isn't just about me or Mr. Patel. This is about the integrity of our security systems, the processes that protect this nation, and the people who are supposed to ensure those systems are followed. The American people deserve accountability, not political theater." Patel's face reddened, his jaw clenched as he stared at her. It was clear that the tension between them had reached its peak, and every word from Crockett only made it harder for him to maintain his composure. "I've worked with documents, I've worked with information that is critical to our national security," she said, her voice rising with confidence. "But what I'm not doing is using that as an excuse to avoid responsibility. What I'm doing right here, right now, is holding people accountable. Even people who think they can hide behind their experience and their access." She could feel the eyes of the room, the audience, the cameras, all focused solely on her. "And that's what this moment is about," she added, a note of finality in her tone. "It's about accountability. And it's about making sure that no one, no matter how powerful they think they are, is above the law." The room erupted. The audience, who had been watching with bated breath, stood up in unison. The sound of applause reverberated throughout the studio, so loud it drowned out the faint hum of the cameras. Chris Wallace, as ever the professional, managed to regain control of the situation. "Congresswoman Crockett," he began, his voice cutting through the cheers, "you've made your point clearly. Mr. Patel, I believe you've been given the opportunity to respond." Patel, visibly shaken but still trying to maintain some semblance of his former arrogance, took a deep breath. His confidence was now reduced to a defensive shell. "I stand by my record," he muttered, his voice tight. "This is all political theater. The documents Congresswoman Crockett presented have been taken out of context. I've done my job. And I've done it well. But the damage was done. No one was buying it. The room had already made up its mind. The viral reaction had begun, spreading across social media. Clips of the confrontation were flooding Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The hashtag bringing receipts was trending. Within minutes, the video was everywhere, shared by political commentators, influencers, and everyday people. Jasmine Crockett just ended Kash Patel's career live on CNN, one tweet read. It had thousands of retweets and likes in mere minutes. The moment had gone from a routine town hall discussion to a political watershed. It wasn't just about a battle over national security. It was about something far more powerful, the unassailable force of facts and the unyielding need for truth in political discourse. By the time the broadcast ended, the world had already shifted. Crockett's name was everywhere. Her social media exploded. In the hours that followed, messages poured in from colleagues, allies, and even from celebrities congratulating her on her performance. But Crockett wasn't celebrating. She knew that her fight wasn't over. This was just the beginning. What had started as a confrontation with one man, Kash Patel, had now transformed into a battle for truth, transparency, and accountability in Washington. And she was ready for it. For Patel, however, the night was far from over. His face flushed with frustration, he was already strategizing his next move. He'd never seen it coming. In the battle of politics, facts had just outpaced bravado. And the truth? The truth was now out there, for everyone to see. The silence that followed Crockett's final remark wasn't just dramatic, it was surgical. The audience, media, and even Chris Wallace knew they had just witnessed a turning point. Jasmine Crockett had come prepared, armed not just with passion but with documentation, receipts, as the internet would soon call them. Patel's earlier confidence had evaporated. His mouth tightened into a grim line, hands fidgeting slightly at his sides as the crowd erupted into applause. Many in the audience rose to their feet. Phones flashed upward, eager to capture what would soon become a moment looped endlessly across social platforms. Wallace, ever the composed moderator, gave Patel one more opportunity. "Mr. Patel," he said, "you have 30 seconds for a final response." Patel sat straighter, adjusting his jacket like armor. But it was too late for posturing. The blow had landed. "The American people are smart enough to see through political theater," he said, his voice laced with forced calm. "My record speaks for itself. What the Congresswoman fails to mention is the countless threats that were neutralized under our leadership, reforms we implemented." "You're out of time, Mr. Patel," Wallace interjected sharply. He turned to Crockett. "Congresswoman, your final 30 seconds. Crockett nodded. Her expression was focused, not gloating. "I didn't come here to attack Mr. Patel personally," she said, voice measured. "I came to defend the principle that oversight matters. That following security protocols matters, regardless of political affiliation." She looked directly into the camera. "When we make these issues partisan, America loses. So yes, I will continue to ask tough questions about national security, not because I lack experience, but because that's exactly what the American people elected me to do." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Applause thundered through the studio, the kind of applause that carries conviction, not just politeness. Even Wallace's famously neutral expression cracked into a look of subdued admiration. As the cameras pulled back into a wide shot, the imagery was stark. Crockett stood tall, documents still in hand, calm and composed. Patel slumped slightly in his chair, jaw clenched, the image of a man who had just realized, on national television, that he had gravely miscalculated his opponent. A producer signaled for commercial, but not before the camera captured one final shot. Rows of audience members on their feet, phones raised high. The moment wasn't just being watched, it was being immortalized. When the feed cut to black, the studio exploded with motion. Production assistants hurried across the floor. Reporters whispered into phones. Staffers scrambled to capture and edit clips for rapid online release. And in the background, a quiet buzz began. Jasmine Crockett just ended Kash Patel's career live on CNN. Patel rose briskly from his chair, face flushed. A producer reached to adjust his microphone, but he batted the hand away. He was already muttering to a staffer beside him. "Get me on the phone with Greg at Fox. We need to get ahead of this narrative immediately." He didn't wait for a reply. Meanwhile, Crockett remained seated. An aide offered her a bottle of water. She accepted it, finally allowing herself a breath. The intensity of the moment was still fresh, but her demeanor remained grounded, as if she had simply done what she came to do. Wallace leaned over during the break. "Congresswoman, that was unexpected," he said, his normally impassive tone tinged with genuine surprise. "Sometimes," she said, unscrewing the bottle cap, "the truth is..." Outside the CNN studio, the internet was already on fire. Within 5 minutes of the exchange, #Jasmine Crockett and #Crockett Receipts were trending on Twitter. The clip where she calmly laid out the Inspector General report played on a loop across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Some users had even added dramatic music, slow-motion replays, or split-screen graphics. One viral tweet showed Patel's smug expression from the start of the town hall contrasted with his grim face at the end. The caption? How it started versus how it ended. Another tweet simply read, "She didn't bring an argument. She brought documentation." It garnered over 80,000 likes in an hour. Even conservative commentators couldn't ignore the moment. One well-known right-leaning analyst tweeted, "Patel walked into that one. Never underestimate your opponent. Basic strategy." Right-wing influencers scrambled to change the narrative. She ambushed him with selectively edited evidence, some claimed. This was a political setup, others added. But even among those who didn't agree with her politics, there was grudging respect. Crockett had done what so many failed to do in Washington: dismantle bravado with facts, not insults. When the town hall returned from commercial, Wallace greeted viewers with dry understatement. "We've certainly had an illuminating discussion on national security credentials." The camera cut back to the stage. Patel was back in his seat, but something fundamental had changed. His shoulders were rigid, his smile replaced by a fixed, unreadable stare. Before moving to audience questions, Wallace gave him one last chance. "Mr. Patel, I want to give you an opportunity to address the documents Congresswoman Crockett presented regarding security protocols." Patel cleared his throat. "What we saw here," he began, tone more rehearsed now, "was a classic Washington gotcha moment. The Congresswoman brought selectively edited documents, without full context." He gestured vaguely. "These matters were administrative in nature and resolved through proper channels. This is exactly the kind of political theater that Americans are tired of." His voice steadied, but it was clear. The damage had been done. The crowd wasn't buying it. There were no cheers. Just a few tired sighs and visible eye rolls from the audience. Crockett didn't interrupt. She waited. With the quiet confidence of someone who knew the truth didn't require volume, she responded. "With respect, Mr. Patel, these documents are complete and unedited. They're available through FOIA requests, public records. My office obtained them legally. They're not classified." She leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "The American people deserve to know the truth, especially from those who appoint themselves as arbiters of who is and isn't qualified to discuss national security." Wallace nodded and turned to the audience for questions. A woman, middle-aged and composed, stood. "I'm a registered independent," she began. "Mr. Patel, given what we've just learned, do you still stand by your earlier statement that Congresswoman Crockett lacks the qualifications to discuss national security matters?" The question hung in the air. Patel hesitated. "My point was, and remains, that theoretical knowledge is not the same as operational experience," he said sharply. "Everything else is a distraction." But the crowd didn't seem convinced, and his earlier composure was gone. As the segment continued, the contrast between the two panelists only sharpened. Patel grew defensive, curt. Crockett, meanwhile, expanded her points, speaking about the importance of accountability in a democratic system and the need for truth in matters of national defense. By the end of the hour, the tone of the town hall had completely transformed. What was meant to be Patel's stage had become Crockett's defining moment. As the town hall wound to a close, the impact of what had transpired inside that CNN studio was just beginning to unfold beyond its walls. The media frenzy was immediate. By the time the credits rolled, major outlets were already pushing headlines online. The Washington Post led with, "Crockett's receipts, Congresswoman comes armed in stunning exchange with former Trump official." Politico followed with a detailed piece titled, "From Prosecutor to Powerhouse, How Jasmine Crockett's Legal Background Led to Kash Patel's Televised Reckoning." Even Fox News, normally friendly territory for Patel, couldn't ignore it, though their headline tried to soften the blow. Patel, ambushed with selective documents in CNN appearance, calls out political theater. But viewers weren't buying spin. Clips of Crockett's takedown were going viral across every major platform. The moment she calmly revealed the Inspector General's report became the kind of political soundbite that would live on in meme culture for years. Young voters posted reaction videos. Journalists dissected every second. Campaign strategists studied her poise. And then came the hashtags, hashtag bringing receipts, hashtag check the documents, and even hashtag Danti Patelit, hashtags that started as jokes, but quickly turned into rallying cries for accountability in public office. Inside the Democratic Party, Crockett's inbox was flooded. Texts from House colleagues congratulated her. Organizers from progressive coalitions requested her as keynote speaker. A message from leadership simply read, "Impressive work today. Let's talk about your committee assignments when you're back in D.C." In her hotel room that night, Crockett scrolled through her phone, barely keeping up with the flood of notifications. Her follower count had surged by over 200,000 in a matter of hours. Mentions from celebrities, academics, and even moderate Republicans praising her composure filled her screen. One message from a senior Democrat stood out. "You just changed your entire career trajectory. On your terms." Meanwhile, the mood in Patel's camp was far different. Conservative media bookers, once eager to host him, began backing away. Internally, there were panicked calls between aides, consultants, and comms directors. He received text after text from GOP allies. "What happened out there? Why weren't you briefed on that report? We need a clean rebuttal, fast." But there was no fast recovery. The internet doesn't forgive or forget easily. In the following days, Patel appeared on friendly media platforms to downplay the confrontation. He blamed cherry-picked documents and partisan grandstanding. He attempted to pivot the conversation back to real threats and policy wins. But the video clips told a different story. His inability to counter her facts. His visible discomfort. The moment his narrative unraveled. For many Americans, especially younger ones, this wasn't about ideology. It was about preparation versus arrogance. Facts over performance. Truth over talking points. And Crockett hadn't just come with firepower, she had come with footnotes. Across the country, the moment began to seep into daily conversation. Employees referencing the exchange in workplace presentations began saying, "Let's bring Crockett energy." Students cited the confrontation in debate prep. Teachers used the clip to explain the importance of primary sources. One TikTok user, in a video that hit 2 million views, walked into a meeting holding a thick binder and said, "Don't worry, I Crockett this." The cultural moment had a gravitational pull all its own. Online shops began selling shirts with the phrase, "Check the documents," across the chest. Another design simply read, "Receipts Rhetoric." The viral exchange even made its way into late-night comedy. One host joked, "Kash Patel learned 2 things that night: never underestimate your opponent, and always ask what's in the folder." But beneath the memes and headlines was something deeper. A shift in the narrative around who gets to speak on national security, and how. For too long, conversations around intelligence and defense had been monopolized by former military and intelligence insiders. Crockett shattered that narrative in one night by doing what many of them failed to do: hold power accountable using transparent, public evidence. In the weeks that followed, Crockett's voice grew louder on the Hill. Her speeches in committee hearings were clipped and shared widely. She introduced a bill focused on enhancing transparency in executive security protocols, her newly elevated platform giving it instant attention. She used her viral spotlight not for ego, but for purpose. Voting rights, criminal justice reform, oversight and accountability. When asked months later about the confrontation that catapulted her to national prominence, she was characteristically grounded. "It wasn't about him or me," she said in an interview. "It was about reminding the American people that facts still matter, that the truth still counts, that showing up prepared still wins." For Patel, the road back to credibility was uphill. Every time he gave a speech, the video resurfaced. Every time he made a claim about security, the internet replied with, "Check the documents." He tried to move on, framing the event as ancient history, politically speaking. But the internet had a longer memory than any strategist could outspin. Blue Book Epilogue. A moment, a movement. 3 months after the town hall, bringing receipts had become more than a meme, it was a standard. In classrooms, boardrooms, newsrooms, and community meetings, people showed up with notes, documentation, and preparation. The phrase became shorthand for showing up informed, refusing to be steamrolled by those who assumed credentials could replace substance. Crockett had given the country more than a moment. She'd given it a model. And in an era of political theater and viral deception, she reminded America of something simple and powerful. Preparation is power. Truth still matters. And sometimes the folder wins.